running two computers here. Keep my mice. I can't see the many people, but anyway, yeah. So welcome everyone. I guess we have another minute, but and welcome to Julian and Dan, who I particularly invited to join, and I'm gonna bring them in a little while. Hi, Leo.
Hey.
Gonna go over some of the policies and the rules. Open the window here, so it's noise in the background. But, we're looking out at a beautiful, large, very, very, very large pink tree, pink covered tree. Anyway,
Cherry, is it?
I think it must be a form of cherry, or it could be an apple. Anyway, which no longer belongs to the cathedral. It used to belong to the cathedral in the backyard of the former deanery.
Typical New Brunswick story, Cheryl.
Yeah.
Things are identified by where things used to be.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, or the fact that everything is in bloom right now around the provinces.
Yeah.
We have some beautiful apple trees everywhere. Okay, well, thanks for joining us, everyone. Let's start. Okay, now I just need to make it so I can. There we go. I wanted to begin, and I did this a couple of months ago for those who are with us, just to highlight the parish officer resources. Parish officers being clergy, wardens, and treasurers, and in some sense vestry clerks, but on our website under resources. And then we have clergy resources, so that nice picture of Julian and Perry, and then parish officers. And if you go to parish officers, one of the top things is the parish officer handbook. So this is here. I note there is actually a handbook that is something besides all the regulations and policies. So it's worth looking through if you haven't done so. And then on this page, which you're not seeing all of, it's just a screenshot, are some of the pertinent, the handbook, link to the handbook and pertinent legislation for parish officers. So that's there. In particular today, of course, we're talking about the properties, and I just wanted to go through some of the legislation for selling, buying, leasing, renovating, and so on church properties. All of the corporations in our diocese, which include parishes, include the cathedral, include the synod, and the bishop is also a corporation, but he has the bishop's office does not have to apply to anywhere else to sell property for some reason. But under the Anglican Church Act, parish corporations, the cathedral chapter, and the synod shall not lease, sell, mortgage, or otherwise dispose of real estate without the approval of the bishop and of the synod, or in the case of the synod, without the bishop's approval. So that is in the Anglican Church Act, which governs us all. It is not always followed, as we've discovered, and so we're just working to make sure that's there. The reason, of course, is just looking at policy A3 is not to be overly controlling, the synod being in control, but to help and make sure that these disposing of property or buying property or renovating is done, is prudent, and you've had a chance to think through things. And so the synod is offering the expertise of the property committee and the finance committee to think through these things. And in this discussion, real property means land and things attached to land. So that's just again, helping the parishes, the cathedral to discharge their legal responsibility to ensure their actions further the mission of the church and are prudent. Also kind of helps with if a warden can't sell something out, the rectory out from under the
incumbent.
from the incumbent, and likewise. Julian, is your hand up? Yeah.
Yeah, I just have a question in terms of leasing. Is that like for regular hall leasing, or is it like a once-off kind of a lease? Because there seem to be some gray area in terms of, in our interpretation of what leasing entails, whether it is for a period of time or is it for a overnight kind of a lease for a rental space?
Right. So that's my next screen. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we came up with this definition, and this is in the handbook. It's not in the policies, but it's in the handbook, and it is leasing space within a parish building. If applying for approval is expected when the lessee will have ongoing exclusive use of the space in question, as discussed in the section above, which so it is like in the case with Riverview with a daycare that's moved in and has regular use. They have the keys, and they kind of have exclusive use of the space. Not maybe on the weekend, but through the week. As opposed to, say, being used by Scouts Canada, who they come in once a week. They would also probably have keys, but they understand they're borrowing the space, whereas the daycare, say, or another parish has a doctor's office, so that space is surplus space. And the doctor and the parish wouldn't go in there on a regular basis. So does that help? Is that clear for people? We're talking about kind of these permanent, ongoing, or somewhat what's considered permanent.
It's Susan here. I would add, though, it doesn't hurt even if you do not need a lease that's approved by the bishop. It never hurts to have a rental agreement.
Yeah.
Oh, correct. Yeah. Well, actually, we do have a form for using the under Safe Church, and that form is going to be renovated. But we do have a form for use, whether it's a one-time use or if it's Scouts on a weekly basis, that kind of thing. A group, a choir. I am in a community choir that practices in a church, and so we're responsible. To the parish to take care of the space and to have insurance and that sort of thing. So I'm not quite getting into that side of it today. That form is going to be redone for the Safe Church refresh through this summer. But yeah, you do need that kind of permission to use the building, which is a form of rental agreement. But as far as asking for permission of property and finance of the synod and the bishop, we're talking more about this kind of ongoing exclusive use situation. Does that help, Julian? And
yes, for sure. Thank you for that. Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, especially in that case, you do want to have your lease agreement kind of figured out before you make application. So with the A3, which is this disposition of real property, you probably bring in your territorial archdeacon. You want to, if you're this is right off the policy where the application is permission to list a property for sale or sell a property. There's the form that you fill out, which I'll just show you some bits of, and where the appendix A, where it's to grant a lease, mortgage right away, or make a gift. There's the appendix B, so they're slightly different. Applications are submitted to the property committee, who kind of look at the details, advise the corporation They then make recommendation to the finance, who approves on behalf of the synod, and the finance then recommends to the bishop to also approve if they approve. So the application, the Appendix A for sale, again, you have a price, or you either have a buyer, someone's come to you and say, can we buy this, spare rectory? And so you have a price, or you're going to put something up for sale. And there are some requirements, your rationale, the corporation's resolution, a motion at a vestry meeting, copy of a tentative agreement, the details and so on, or if it's a listing agreement, you could have a copy of the listing agreement and market valuation. So that's in the Appendix A. For a lease, it's Appendix B. This is, and that's lease, mortgage, offer right away, or make a gift. And just a little bigger, the documentation again is the rationale. If it's a lease, a copy of the tentative lease agreement, and which should include the details, monthly lease and so on. For right away, for a mortgage, and those are again things we don't see them as often, right away in the mortgage. And the market valuation, maybe appraisal by a licensed appraiser, or maybe submissions from 3 licensed realtors.
That would be submitted to the property
Cheryl?
committee, would it?
Yes, so yeah, there would be there's the application itself, so A or B, and then those things attached to it. And the pointer to the application, by going to see policy 8.3 on the web, you can follow the links. There's the 2 applications as well. Paul?
Yeah, it's gone.
Okay. So policy A9 is for purchasing property. Not as many parishes seem to be doing that, or new construction and renovation. Again, this is about just being a sober second thought on the stuff and helping you with questions. And again, just to make sure the parish, or those leading it for the parish, are being prudent. So again, this policy applies to parish, cathedral, and synod itself. Purchasing real property or constructing new structures. We're actually looking at renovating our space here. So the cathedral, we rent from the cathedral, so they will likely have to do this. There is a proviso, which I'll just talk about in a second. The policy does not apply to as-kind renewal of existing structures or building components. So you don't have, if you're replacing your roof because it needs replacing, or windows, upgrading heating system, you do not have to apply. This is for new and structural changes. And I think number 2, yeah. For greater certainty, synod permission is required before undertaking new construction or renovation of any value that addresses structural deficiencies or that makes noticeable aesthetic changes to the interior or exterior of a place of worship. So pretty much anything that you do with your church, with just changing the look or the style of it. Again, not the roof, changing the windows might in that case, but if you're replacing the roof or the heater, the boiler, whatever, that's
so putting in a new kitchen or new bathroom, washrooms.
Right. If it's something new.
Yeah.
Replacing the fixtures in the existing bathroom would not require the application, but putting in a new washroom would. That's helpful.
Cheryl.
Yes, Paul?
Is the response, it said for the greater certainty, synod permission. Is synod permission discharged through the committees, like property and finance?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finance, actually, property recommends to finance. Finance makes the approves, and then also the bishop has to also approve. But finance tends to make the approvals for Synod of anything money wise, I guess. So yeah.
Right.
These get reported to the actual Synod Diocesan Council, but they are on behalf of Synod approved at finance level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Corporations have blanket permission to purchase real property of a cost not exceeding $10,000. Well, you're not going to get much. Or undertake new construction and renovations of a market value cost not exceeding $10,000, which you're also not going to get much done. As of Dawson Council meeting this coming Saturday, we're looking to increase the lower value to $20,000. So if your parish is thinking about renovations, we are expecting this to be a slightly larger value as of Saturday, so you can watch for that.
I'd second that motion.
Yeah. I did a washroom in my house, just renovated a washroom and it was 10,000. That was 10 years ago. Again, the application process, again, bring in your territorial archdeacon, just if for some guidance, and where the corporation seeks permission to purchase exceeding 10,000, new construction or renovation exceeding 10,000, maybe 20, and those are to address structural deficiencies or make noticeable aesthetic changes to the church building itself, the worship space. It consults the property committee at the conceptual stage before there has been a substantial outlay of money or other substantial commitment by the corporation. Okay, bring the Synod in early, and and the whole process maybe will go. And again, Susan Jacks, who's with us, is our chair of property, and she can recommend some experts and so on. We want to be able to help with the process. And 13, in shaping and assessing the pros projects, the property committee considers the following. So these are things under policy A9 that you can look at to address. So again, there might be things you haven't thought about that more people involved will bring to light. And then again, in both cases, policy A3 and A9, there's an appendix with an application, the specific application, and then those are sent to the Synod office, or directly you can email to property@anglican.nb.ca, or directly to Susan, but if you go to property, then it kind of gets recorded. Any questions on the two, A3 and A9?
Cheryl, the earlier, I forget which section it was, but there was something about getting appraisals on property.
If you're
selling.
If you're selling.
If you're selling.
Selling or leasing, yeah.
Yeah. How many appraisals? Did it say more than one?
So no, if you get an actual licensed appraiser, just one.
Just one. Okay.
If you're going with, you can go, if you're just leasing and so on, you can go with 3 licensed realtors. So you know how they can do the market survey.
Yes.
Yeah, but you need 3 of those.
Oh, 3 of those if it's just a real estate agent.
Just a real, yeah.
Okay, but if it is a licensed appraiser, one is sufficient.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, okay, yeah, no, I actually thought I had a picture of the policy A9 appendix when I was in. And of course, the other property item is there's a longstanding policy, minimum insurance standards. Corporation has clear responsibility and to make sure you're adequately insured. But there is a proviso if it's a property that is considered surplus, you're not likely to replace it if destroyed, then you can apply for actual cash value or site cleanup. But again, ask in those cases. Well, I mean, Philip's watching, I guess you are asking for your insurance
Yeah.
things anyway, so. Any questions? Oh, Julian, I see your hand, sorry.
Thank you. Cheryl, just a question in regards to the income that comes from leased space.
Mm-hmm.
Does that have any implication on our tax receipting process?
Thank you
Or
for asking that. I should have included that. Not really, because you're using that income for charitable purposes.
Yeah.
So just like all of your donations, from members and others, that's for charitable purposes. You're leasing your space. It is for charitable purposes, or I assume it is anyway.
yeah.
So that should not affect your charitable status, nor your property tax, nor implement property tax. I do note that in New Brunswick, if you make a change with something with a property, so maybe you do some work, you've gotten a building permit, it's gone through something's happened and it's gone through the land titles books, or the province's Service New Brunswick, something's triggered. Sometimes the no property or tax exempt status gets changed. And so it shouldn't be, but it does. So generally you just need to go back to Service New Brunswick and say something's happened. This is a church property. We're still tax exempt. So it's just some sort of automatic trigger that it gets exempt. The tax exempt status gets switched to not tax exempt. So if you get a tax bill the next year, just watch for that. Now, the problem with that is some of our older churches, the addresses have changed and those tax bills go somewhere into the abyss. And but anyway, hopefully it doesn't hurt actually to go online because everyone can look at the Service New Brunswick and check the assessments and the amount paid. So if you check your properties on that system, you can make sure that there's zero tax being assessed. So that's just something to pay attention to if anything's changed, and just in case you don't get the bill at the right address, because I've seen that happen with some of our churches are on roads that have changed names and numbers more than once. So.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the tax exempt thing? So I did want to on the leasing idea, and I didn't actually make a screen for this. We have with us two incumbents who have recently leased. So maybe I'll just stop sharing. Who have recently gone into these kind of permanent lease, ongoing, let's say, ongoing lease agreements with a form of a daycare in both cases. I think one's a school, but this is the daycare side of the school. And so that's Julian in Riverview and Dan in Sussex. And so I was just wondering how that came about, and in both cases. So I'll let you guys, maybe Julian first, and Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. This is obviously something, an important topic in regards to building. And when we were approached by a daycare, the first time around, it was shut down. Some disgruntled and very strong opinion people felt that it was an invasion of sacred property, and this is our sacred space, and we need to keep it that way. But truth be told, I think they felt somewhat a challenge in how to share the space because they would be restricted. So the second time around, when a different daycare approached us, I approached this a little bit different. So rather than having an open discussion, I set up a subcommittee and then ask them to interview and to receive information or have discussions with people that have concerns with that. That seemed to have worked better. There was more openness to the idea of at least looking at a daycare and an aftercare. And so, people were able to share their views and opinions, and, obviously been trying to convince them that this is not to prevent them from their ministry, but it's, in addition to overall that we do as a church. So when we looked at the space, one of the biggest challenges was how do we pivot? How do we allow for a daycare and yet still include some of the programs that the groups host? And we came to a good compromise that church groups will always have first preference, and they will always have access to the building. And, advance notice will be given if there are any events that needs to happen, and, how we go about that. So that worked. The other thing when we looked at the overall building usage, we found that it's used probably for church use, and this is not exaggeration, except for Sunday mornings, probably about 5 hours for the month. And from a real estate point of view, that's not a very good investment, to have $1 million building and just use it 5 hours. So I try to encourage the parish to see things from a very holistic perspective, and to show them that, if we were in real estate and if we did some kind of calculation, our investments and our returns were not aligned. So we got to be good stewards of what God has given us, and how do we go about doing that? So that was something the lights went on for some people to see it as more than just 5 hours a month, but overall, how do we engage with the wider community? And that was one of the important points I try to encourage people to think about. How do we connect with our community? How do we engage with young families? How do we make our sacred space accessible whilst maintaining our sacredness, but also being a conduit for ministry within the community? And so people also began to change their opposition when they began to see the building as a conduit for ministry. So that was something that was very helpful. I think for us, the biggest challenge was, how do we pivot? How do we allow the different groups to have access to the building, and yet at the same time still have a daycare? I think.
Can I come back to that then? And I'll get Dan maybe to
Yeah.
to also respond more about how it came about. And then I do want to talk about the challenges. Yeah. Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you. Yeah, we have the Little Lights Daycare, which is from the Sussex Christian School, partnered with them, and they run out of our basement. We have a lovely basement in Trinity, Sussex that is not used at all. Like Julian said, our basement would be less than 5 hours a month. It stores Sunday school handouts from 1999, and there's a game of hide and seek from our youth group in it, once a month or something like that. That's about it. So they reached out to us, the Sussex Christian School, and their daycare and their other ministries are having a rapid expansion the past few years. And we're probably the fifth or sixth church that they've partnered with. So we were lucky that they had that experience already, partnering with other churches from all sorts of denominations, which is wonderful, ecumenical. They run out of a Pentecost church, a Pentecostal church, a Wesleyan church, two Baptist church, and now even the crazy Anglican church. They run out of us as well. So it was kind of a no-brainer. We had the space. These were devout Christians running intentionally Christian children ministry, and they reached out to us. And unlike, I suppose, the experience in Riverview, our people thought right away, if this lined up, that this was good. We have a basement that isn't being used. this is a Christian group coming in to do a Christian thing, to invest in children. Um, and so that's how it came about. People smarter than I started this discernment. When I came here, they were already kind of discerning and coming through together. But yeah, they reached out to us to use our space.
Okay. So that seemed to be the both it came from the daycare or the school to the space. And I don't know if other parishes are getting those kinds of requests, but okay, Julian, some challenges. So yours is not a Christian daycare specifically. I don't think.
Yeah, we don't. The person who runs and owns this aftercare is somewhat a relapsed Christian, but it's not a Christian daycare, so to speak. So in my initial engagement with the aftercare, I asked, is there an opportunity for us to work together? And are we at liberty to invite or engage with the kids in regards to the Christian faith? Special events, can we come in and do a talk and things like that? And so she was very open to that. And I saw that as an opportunity because, we're also trying to grow our young families and grow our kids ministry. And this was low hanging fruit for us, right? So when she was open to that, like I felt, yeah, this is something that will work. We have invited them to a puppet show that we got later on in June, and we're thinking about some items around Christmas. So she was very open about that. So some of the challenges, Cheryl, was when we have a funeral, how would that work? Thankfully, our hall and sanctuary space has a nice split up area there, so we could still have a funeral, but the challenge would be for a reception. So what we've opted to do was to have the funeral probably later in the morning, or if people are open to the option of hosting the funeral at the church and then having a reception at an alternative venue. And in our survey, historically, we found that more people are gravitating towards the funeral homes now rather than the actual parish and the sanctuary. So that also opened up conversation, how can, we can still have a dignified funeral, but most people are willing to use the nursing, the funeral home, and are not really keen on the idea of coming to the sanctuary. I found that especially with the people that have connections to the church but have relapsed over the years. So that was something for us to think about as well. But I think the biggest challenge was how do we creatively share the space? Like we had an ACW event yesterday, and normally they would start in the afternoon and go on till late afternoon. So we started the event at 10:30 a.m. and we were out by about 1 o'clock, and that's when the day aftercare comes in. So the other thing was we moved some events to a Saturday, where groups, if they needed a longer day or a longer time, they had the whole of Saturday and parts of Sunday afternoon to plan and to set up there. So that was our experience. It has been working so far, and we hope it continues, to build momentum and become more positive going forward. Dan, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, thank you, Julian. It was even lower hanging fruit, I think, for our parish. Some of those challenges that Julian talked about in Sussex, we don't have because we still have our church gym, and then it's the basement of that. And there's 40 kids in our church right now, and you can't hear them. I kind of wish you heard them more, but actually, and bring a bit of life to this place. But you can't hear them at all. So we have funerals and receptions and normal stuff. It's literally just this basement level that was not used before is now completely used for ministry, which is wonderful. Our biggest challenge would probably simply be, the technicalities and paperwork, and then financially, our building wasn't ready for a daycare. It needed a lot of upgrades. So $1 million was spent. Most of that, it was a grant from the government, but we fronted the money. And this is where low-hanging fruit and God was at work. We received a bequest just before this, which allowed us to do this. So I have no advice other than have somebody rich who cares for the church pass away and leave you money. That would be my advice. But that I really do think that was part of God's kind of plan here. So that money was left, so we were able to front the big cost. And the government is slowly paying us back. Yeah, it was just great. I think God was lining things up. So I like Julian's phrase, low hanging fruit. It felt very, very low for the parish of Sussex. It did feel like God was kind of even directing us to this, which is wonderful. And now we have 40 kids, ages 1 to 4, every day getting Christian care. We have chapel with them once a week, which is wonderful. I get to hang out with them once a week, and it's been great.
One of the things I was very deliberate in emphasizing was the fact that the building needs to be serving the mission of our church. And I used the phrase, which became a catchphrase: we must be careful the tail doesn't wag the dog, you know. And it's tried to explain to many people that the building was built for a purpose, to glorify God, for the cure of souls. And once we move away from that, we can so quickly lose our identity and why this building was here in the first place. So I made deliberate efforts to emphasize that at many times, and to restate the fact that this building is more than just a building. It's a place where we keep the mission of God alive and become a place where people can find God. So that was right at the forefront of everything I said.
That's good, which I'm sure helped with those who are less members of the church who are less keen on going there. Do others have questions of Julian and Dan?
Just to say, the Property and Finance Committee were a very, very good resource to bounce off. They provided lots of guidance. Susan would email and I would email her, and she would make amendments and corrections to our lease. And so that was really helpful, to have that resource that we could bounce off. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for saying so, Julian. That is one thing. I mean, the property committee now has done or helped parishes with leases of different types. So that is a good resource. I know we helped Sussex as well, kind of
Yes.
with some things in their lease.
Yeah, can I add on to that?
Sure.
I wasn't a part of the nitty-gritty work, the paperwork and things like that. I'm just the guy who prays in the background. But I think the people who really work to get this going would say a big thank you to both the property and diocese and financial and the Synod staff and all, because they had a lot of grace. We made a lot of mistakes. And they had a lot of grace and helped us move forward, even though we did stuff the improper order. There was lots of grace, and we were very thankful for that. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but I know I've visited the Sussex the space because I have family that worships there, and it is in fact it's just lovely. I tried to get downstairs. I was in Riverview, and I tried to get downstairs, but it was at a time when it was locked. But I know it's I've seen there are articles. Giselle's done articles with both, so those are available as well on our website, and including the recent one with Dan and doing chapel. And I did note there was a comment from a mother of one of the children at the school, and how she said her daughter so much enjoyed that time up with Dan in the actual church for their chapel, the worship space. So it's just, these are really cool ways to use your building for community, for mission, and so. If there are other questions, I know we tend to end it. Sure. Yeah, Paul?
Cheryl, we have a bit of a unique situation in Gagetown, where we have some property, part of the church property itself, basically, that is labeled as graveyard expansion.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had this property for, I don't know, maybe 100 years or or something in that order. Um, and we've never expanded the grave. We have quite a large graveyard around the church already. Those of you who are familiar will know. And there's quite a few spaces still left in this existing graveyard. So the chances of using this graveyard expansion becomes more limited. People as well. Julian mentioned how people are more commonly going to the funeral homes to have the receptions and even the services. Um, People are taking their ashes, the remains of their family members, and doing all manner of things other than placing them in a graveyard. Recently we've been approached by a community member of the local Rotary Club, and thinking that this piece of property that basically we've brush hogged, it's about 100 feet by 300 feet, just to give you some idea of the size. So it's a pretty big chunk of property. But all we've done to this particular section of the graveyard is just brush hog it once or twice a year. So it's quite unruly, and it's not unsightly, but it doesn't add a whole lot to the community either. So we've been approached to develop a garden, the members of the community to develop a garden on this property. And so I was out meeting with the chap that is heading this up, just sort of demarcating the division between this unused property and the used graveyard, and he's putting some stakes in. So, do you think that this would entail a lease or a rental agreement, or?
That's a great use of property. I would say. I don't, Susan. You're not going to be collecting rent or anything.
No, there's no money exchanged.
Yeah.
We are not taking any responsibility. We, the vestry, are not taking any responsibility for the development. This is all on the shoulders of community members.
I think the only issue is you will retain ownership of the land, correct?
That's correct.
So there'd be liability there.
Right. So
That's the only issue I could think of. Definitely you wouldn't need a lease or a rental agreement because you're not getting any money for it.
right. Although if there, yeah, some sort of memorandum of understanding maybe between you and if the Rotary Club is going to kind of manage it,
Yeah.
then so that there is the insurance aspect.
Well, yeah, and the Rotary Club hopefully will hold the liability insurance.
I don't think that's very likely, Susan.
Okay. Well,
And as you've already pointed out, it is still church property. And if we choose to use it as a garden property that would be visited by members of the community, would that not fall under our own liability insurance policy?
we could check, yeah, because we have churches with community gardens, so we could probably look into that as to what.
I think probably more one thing to be aware of. If it was a true lease, we would expect the person leasing it or the organization at leasing it to hold liability insurance with us as a named payout on that. But this is slightly different for sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
just getting
I think it's all good for a church to host a community garden personally.
Yeah, so, but we can discuss that further if there are,
In the back of my own mind, I have an idea that we, in time, might put an apartment building on this piece of property. And I've mentioned this to the people that are interested. If you develop a garden here and then down the road from here, we decide that we want to develop an apartment building, that, we may just benefit from some of your landscaping around this new apartment building.
right.
Could be part of the MOU if you choose to go in that direction too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I mean, apartment building, there's been parishes who have done buildings or subsidized housing buildings as well, which is also a good use of land. So anyway.
Cheryl, Cheryl, sort of a related question, given that we have this authority in the form of Susan Jack with us. I'm just wondering, how do we get to be one? My understanding is to apply for funds from the Anglican Foundation, that they will receive 3 from each diocese across Canada on a regular basis. I don't know what, annually or semi-annually, whatever, something like that. How do you get to be one of the 3 projects that will be sponsored by the diocese to make application to the Anglican Foundation?
How about we let the treasurer
Okay.
speak to that?
That's a good point. So you're right. We have the ability to make 4 applications a year for various category. There's only one exception, is if it's a major renovation more than 50,000, we'd only have 1 application available a year, and that closes. So anything under the applications are usually up to sort of 15,000, something like that, and usually AFCs will allow sort of 50-50 match funding. We can have 4 of those applications a year. We have 2 windows. We generally open as 2 windows, spring and fall, to meet with various deadlines, because it would go through a sort of a vetting process within finance, and it's usually finance who then sort of decide, if we get lots of applications, which applicant is best likely to achieve a funding from AFC. So that's how we tend to do it. In some years we've had to choose. The last couple of years we've not had enough to need to choose. We've been able to just put forward a number of applicants and been successful. So the key would be any AFC funding does need council approval. That's one of the requirements, and because council only meet 4 times a year, we need to mirror that with the timing of the council to get those approved, and time for then submitting to an AFC deadline. They have a window deadline which we need to achieve. So that's why we have 2 applications. So when you do a request for funding, you've got an option of saying we would be willing to go through an AFC funding.
Wrong thing, sorry.
But would usually be up to the finance committee to determine which are the best candidates to move that to an AFC.
And who is the we, Philip?
Finance committee.
The finance committee. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to find, there is a page. Not sure why there it is. Synod Financial Resources. You'll also find it under the clergy office, or sorry, parish officer resources. Synod Financial Resources for parishes. So that will show you the, do it here. That's not going to work now. No. The actual, oh, there we go. The next deadline is September 4th. And so it's in with the regular DOS and grant process.
Yes.
And the finance committee, or actually a grant committee, will determine, which of the requests we send on to the Anglican Foundation.
So if a parish applies to the finance and the building committee for a project, and they get approval from those 2 committees, or I'm not sure, maybe finance is the
finance and the bishop in the end.
Yeah, finance and the bishop. Is there a further application to?
Yes.
Yeah. And we send that to the finance committee as well?
It actually goes to the grant committee. So there's the application for Synod grants. You should see on the screen there. That's the, and we're actually looking to change that application as of Saturday as well. So a little more straightforward. But that's twice a year that those get reviewed.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So I particularly want to thank Julian and Dan for joining us today and sharing about their experiences. And everyone else for, let me stop my share again here. and to everyone else for joining us. And I hope it's been helpful. And again, we're here to help if you need. And you can contact us at the Synod office. All the contacts are available on the website as well, or 459-1801. Happy to help and to align things, share what other parishes have done. So that's good. So blessings to all, and very best, and blessings on those two daycare school things happening. That's great. So, yeah. And as you interact with them and do and find ways to minister, use it for ministry, it's great. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, take care.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Turn off recording.